Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Film Fan Club show, where we try to discuss movies like we're part of the cinematic elite, even though our taste in films mostly gravitates towards explosions and superheroes. I'm your host, Sam Carrico, here to provide the mediocre movie commentary you never asked for. Tonight's episode is jam-packed. We have the one and only Alex McKellar dropping by to talk Dune Part 2. But before we dive in, this is our last show before the Oscars next week. Of course, tune in March 10th because we are going to be doing live post-Oscars discussion in a special episode. But before then, I've got to get something off my chest, okay? Barbie is not an original film. It's just not. Now, for those of you who are Oscar heads like me, there are two screenplay categories at the Academy Awards: Best Original Screenplay and Best Adapted Screenplay. It's like choosing between a DIY pizza kit and a pre-made pizza. You get the idea. But here's the deal. Barbie, the iconic doll that we all know and love, was created by the legendary Ruth Handler. And any movie featuring Barbie is essentially playing with someone else's toys, right? So it would come as no surprise that Barbie, the movie, would slide right into the Best Adapted Screenplay category, right? No. The team behind the Barbie movie thought it would be a brilliant idea to campaign for Best Original Screenplay instead, probably still reeling from the high of all their simps calling it one of the most original movies of the summer. We called that out at the time. It wasn't. So when the Academy did nominate it, but for Best Adapted Screenplay instead, fans were not happy. They wanted Best Original, damn it. And when I tried to explain these differences online on Twitter, one Twitter user came back with, "So what? The plot is not based on anything from Mattel or Barbie itself. The main character's name is Barbie." But I was stunned by their line of thinking. Yeah, it's an existing IP, but an original story. What? So I wrote back, if I write an original story featuring a Marvel character, does that count as an original screenplay? They replied, of course. And my mind was blown. How did they not know that's literally what adaptation is? Another wise soul on Twitter pointed out, quote, "And yet there's been films based on real people and real events that have been nominated or even won Best Original Screenplay. How is that any different from Barbie?" End quote. That's because those are true stories. What author are they ripping off? God? When writing a biographical film, the screenplay is, yes, why am I explaining this? It's based on real life events and people, but the actual words are the work of a creative interpretation. In contrast, a film based on existing IP, why am I explaining this, has distinct characters, settings, and storylines already established. That kind of limits the originality of your screenplay. I'm not even saying Barbie is bad or doesn't deserve a nomination. Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie put together a perfectly fine film. Okay, I am saying it doesn't deserve to win. We talked about that last week. Most importantly, though, as a fan of the Oscars, we need to keep the integrity of these categories, or else these Hollywood award shows are just meaningless. Okay, we've got a great show for you lined up. Let's get right to our discussion of Dune Part 2. Let's meet tonight's guest. Alex McKellar is a video editor and, of course, the co-host of the Mission Matinee podcast. Alex, it's good to see you. How are you?
It's good to see you too, and I'm good. Just hanging out. Saw a good movie the other day, and excited to talk about it.
And you were kind of getting excited for this movie. You also on your YouTube channel, AMFM Productions, you just put together, what is it, a Oppenheimer Dune Part 2 mashup. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've enjoyed like trailer mashups on YouTube for a while, and then have been working on a couple different ones, but then found like a way to get like trailers with 5.1 audio. And years ago, a channel I like, Mr. Crayfus, I linked them in the description, made Dune Tenet style, like made a trailer for Dune Part 1 with like the Tenet background. So I was like, bro, we got, again, Nolan and Villeneuve releasing a movie around the same time. So let's just see if I can mash it up. And yeah, it came together really well. I think the trailer captures the tone of the movie better than some of the other trailers. But I think, only because I think the trailers Dune made were like, yeah, like this it's exciting, it's more hopeful. Then they pull the rug out from under you as it goes along.
I haven't seen a lot of the Oppenheimer trailers. I watched them when they're in the theater, of course, but I haven't revisited them because we talked about it last week. It's number 5 on my list, best pictures of the year. It's whatever, but Oppenheimer didn't quite leave as much as an impact as 4 other movies last year did. But the trailer that you made just without comparing it to Oppenheimer, it made me really hyped to see this movie. Even though,
Good.
as we can transition, of course, they can find
Hmm.
Alex's video in the description of this video. It was hard to get me hyped for this movie because I rewatched my video about Dune Part One. John Leon,
Hmm.
friend of the show, was on the show, and I wasn't as hot on it. I was kind of mixed on it.
Hmm.
I'll retcon that now. I'll say it's not a good movie. It's a poorly paced movie. Sam was being too kind on it. I love
Nah,
Blade
man.
Runner 2049. I love Prisoners. I love Sicario.
Hmm.
I was very
All
excited for
good.
all from the same director, obviously. I was very excited
Hmm.
for Dune Part One. I was People have told me the 1984 film is good, but doesn't quite do it justice. All right. I think it would have made a very good 10 episode television series. And having seen Part
Hmm.
Two now, I still think it should have been a 10 episode television series. Dune Part One had some of the worst pacing I've ever seen. Rewatching it, I was originally going to see Dune Part Two with somebody else. And
Hmm.
so they had seen Dune Part One with me. I was like, let's both rewatch it. And she said to me, Sam, not only should we stop rewatching Part One right now, you can go ahead and refund my ticket for Dune Part Two.
Dang.
That Dune
Savage.
Part One did such a bad job advertising Part Two that's the result. And I did see it though. We'll talk a little bit more about my thoughts on Part Two in a second. But Alex, I've been talking
Hmm.
a lot. Tell
It's
us,
okay.
let's get some positivity in here. Had you read
Yeah.
the book? Did you like the first movie? Were you hyped for the second movie?
I have not read the book or the books, and I did like the first movie. I like it even more the more I've seen it. It's like the first time through, again, all the performances I thought were really good. It definitely was like there's sort of a lot's going on. I heard it compared one time to like it's like if someone made a movie about the opening monologue of Galadriel in The Lord of the Rings, but then stopped after we destroyed the ring. Like it's
Yeah,
like just like they extended the prologue of this sort of epic space saga, I guess, to really dig into the Paul Atreides story aspects of it. But as I've like watched it a few different times over the years since it came out, I love it, man. It's so good. I don't find that it drags at all. I mean, I think the cinematography of that whole movie is gorgeous. Like, I
sure.
mean, it's not as action packed as other movies, but just sort of that like political tension and sort of as I've learned some more about it. I don't know, man. I think the first Dune is great. And again, we joked about this, but like talking about pacing, man, I fell asleep during Killers of the Flower Moon. Like, come on.
Killers of the
But
Flower. I was thinking about that watching Dune Part One. I was like, man, when we're at this point in Killers of the Flower Moon, we were going places. DiCaprio
Mhm.
was given the best performance of his lifetime and didn't get nominated somehow. What the hell?
Yeah, that is
But
crazy.
it
I
was
do
great.
like the cars in Killers better than the cars in Dune.
The
I will say
transportation
that.
department did an
Yeah,
amazing job on
it was
Killers
so
of the
good.
Flower Moon. That
It's
that earned
true.
the
Yeah,
Oscar itself. And
yeah.
so, but yeah,
That
talk
that
about
deserves the
pacing.
Oscar.
Couldn't disagree with you more. Killers of the Flower Moon, 3.5 hour movie, paced way better. And you know what? Maybe if they had done part one and two together as a 3.5 hour movie, it would have been
Mm,
better. Throw in maybe make it 4 hours, throw in some title cards. I'm there.
yeah. Look, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm always with you with the title cards, obviously. We can't always copy Zack Snyder, but right
But you
there.
think that the best way to do it really is two separate 2.5 hour movies? I don't.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I like the Lord of the Rings is three movies, all super long. I like
The
those.
Fellowship of the Ring is just about as long as the book Dune, and they made the Fellowship in the Ring of the Ring in one movie. You can do
Yeah,
it. You can do it.
yeah, you can. And then they did it this way. I mean, I'm also with you. I think this story, from what I've seen, again, I haven't read the books, so I don't know. I'm going off vibes. I'm going off that I really love, like Timothy Chalamet's performance. I love Rebecca Ferguson's performance in both of these movies. We can get into it.
He was better
I,
in Wonka.
I still haven't seen Wonka, so I can't. I'm not gonna fight on that. But I thought he was good in this. And yeah, man, I don't know. I really like what they do in Dune Part One. I like the slow kind of build up, and then all of the craziness with the Harkonnens coming in, and learning about the oh no, their name just fell in my mind. Whatever the other army is that they team up with that does the throat singing that everyone made like 10-hour like house beats to in from the first Dune. Sardaukar? Yeah, I think it's the Sardaukar. Again, a bunch of weird names. So it's like first time through, I'm like, I don't know what any of this means. Like some of this music is great, some of these fight scenes are rad. I love Jason Mimosa as Duncan Idaho. He was great. I've just become a huge Jason
I've
Mimosa
heard
head.
I've heard Jason Mimosa. I've heard Jason Samoa. It's
Yeah.
funny. Those are great. It's Girl Scout cookie season.
Yes.
So it's safe to
I
say you liked the first one and you
Oh
were
yeah,
very
a whole
excited for the
bunch.
second one. Is
Oh
the
yeah,
second
super
one,
hyped.
as we move into our, vibes, first thoughts on the second one, was it better or worse than the first movie? I want to ask you that.
I think, I mean, like better. It was a better like first time viewing experience for sure because I wasn't as sort of lost in this like intense lore. Like neither movie's really holding your hand as far as like we're gonna explain what spice is, what this is, what
The
all this
first
stuff
one had a
is.
lot of exposition. It was
Yeah,
some of the exposition made my eyes rolling back in my head.
yeah, but it's also not like deeply explaining stuff. It's sort of you're getting it in like these chunks, and then you get other exposition sort of as we get onto Arrakis about how stuff's gonna work, but not as much like what the full like scope of this universe is, all the houses, all of those different things. Um, but yeah, so like knowing the first, I rewatched the first one. I was very glad I did. And then going to see this one, I was like, oh, okay, cool. And also, I was relatively familiar with a percentage of the movie from editing the trailer. So I was
Right.
like, oh, there we go. Seen that. I know what that is. Or also the way that they reworked scenes to make it, make a trailer that made you think one thing that then was different in the movie, which I always love when movies pull that off and don't spoil everything. But I mean, this one definitely more action packed. I love like the cinematography seemed to have been upgraded even more, especially what they were doing on the Harkonnen homeworld, just as like quick little highlights where it was like that infrared black and white.
That
I
was
thought
cool.
that was so gorgeous. Oh yeah, and just like the transitions of them moving from like the shadows into the sun and like seeing the color palette switch gradually was just it was so sick. But yeah, no, I thought this was great. I mean, it'll be interesting to see as these movies go on which one ultimately like becomes my favorite. But I could see this one being like a Two Towers or a Return of the Jedi, where it's like I have more fun rewatching that middle chapter of the Dune Paul Atreides saga. Just because
Yeah.
it's got the action. I sort of you skim through the exposition and then go on, and then yeah, and then we'll see later on the conclusion, or I don't know how many there will be, but another one at least.
We'll talk a little bit about that because this film is left, without getting in too much into spoilers, left
Mm-hmm.
very open ended. My thoughts on part two: it's a much better film than the first one because, well, first of all, things actually happen in it. The
Mm-hmm.
pacing is still. I only fell asleep for like 5 minutes in my theater experience, which is much better than the first one. That's a
Nice.
true statement. The cast is better. You subtract Oscar Isaac, which sucks, but then you add Florence Pugh, you add Christopher
Mm,
Walken, you add
mm,
Austin Butler, you add Leia
mm,
Sado.
mm.
What are we doing here? It's great. I love that. And then
Yeah.
I mentioned things actually happen. Some of those things are characters actually go on arcs in this movie. Something I felt that the first one was very much lacking. Paul Atreides begins an arc, but he goes on
Hmm.
such a character journey in this one. It was very
Oh yeah.
compelling, and it's kind of one of those things where I didn't know the source material, so the character journey that he goes on surprised me. I was like,
Mm,
"What? This is where we're going with this?" That's exciting too. It surprised me. The first one, it felt the pacing was very bad. They had a big middle battle, and then the second half of the movie. Well, the way I describe it is the first half of the movie, Dune Part One, sucks. There's a big
mm,
action in the part in the middle, and you think the movie's going to start to pick up, but then it slows back down again, and it sucks again. This one doesn't have any of that. There's enough
oh
in
yeah.
there with the ensemble that every time it's like Game of Thrones, it's like, oh, now we're checking on in on this guy. As soon as
Hmm.
I get bored with this guy, now we're checking in on this guy. Dune Part Two is a much better film. Would you? I mean, just what do you think of my not criticisms, my praises of the second one? Are they accurate? Of course, they're accurate. What do you think?
Of course they're accurate. Yeah. No, again, like like the love I have for Doom Part One has grown over watching it more times and seeing more of what it's doing in that slower paced build up. But I agree with you, like it is it's like why I described like it's like a prequel. It's like setting the stage so you don't have as many character arcs going on, but you're getting all of this emotional backstory so that you can understand Paul's emotional journey in this one. Like I think they work really well together. I think, yeah, my initial reaction right now is like I am excited to see Dune Part Two again. I expect as the years go on, I'll rewatch Dune Part Two more often than I'll rewatch one. You
Mhm.
know, so yeah, I mean, but also the recency bias, and I saw it in the IMAX. Like, yeah, I just had a great time. It was wild.
Thank you. That's an amazing point that I had thought of. So credit to me on that, but I forgot to say it. So thank you for
Yeah.
saying it. These movies are they made the deliberate decision to make them into two movies, and the first one was released on HBO Max at the same time as being released in theaters. So you had the option to go to the theater if you wanted
Hmm.
to, but really most people saw it on HBO Max. I think that was a
Right.
mistake.
Yeah.
I think it killed the Suicide Squad movie that was so good, although they kept James Gunn for whatever reason. They shouldn't have done that. But the Suicide Squad movie was, as we later
It was
learned,
great. Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
mean, he
liked.
ripped off Zack Snyder with the title cards, but other than that, it was great.
Thank you, thank you. They should have released that. They should have released Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League in theaters. It would have taken all day, but you could have done that. And
Yeah.
then, my point is, I think the HBO Max release strategy that Warner Brothers did in 2021 was a mistake, and it hurt Dune Part One because watching it at home, the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I'd much rather be looking at my phone. I'd much rather be watching Game of Thrones. I'd much rather be watching Real Time with Bill Maher, something like
Mm.
that. And something interesting but the Dune Part Two, you're locked in. You can't look at your phone. It's root to the person next to you. You can't
Yeah.
you can't just immediately click the circle button on your PS4 controller and go away and watch something better. You have to sit there and give it your all. And in giving your all, that speaks to the movie theater experience. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, it is. Both of them were great. I don't remember if I think I saw part one in theaters, at least once. And that was awesome as well. Again, like it's a big, like the sound, like the music of both movies is, it's just barely moving into music, like
Yeah.
listening to like parts of the soundtrack. It's like still just like that atmospheric, like, but big sound,
Yeah.
quiet sound, high dynamic range. So, like, yeah, these are movies like made for the theater,
I literally thought
like
to
at
myself
that.
at one point, does this count as sound design or soundtrack? So that's an interesting
Yeah,
point too.
it's like a mix of both so much of the time. Because yeah, like just to like help get my head like back in the movie space, I was just like had it on like Apple streaming or whatever. It was like just listening to some of the score, and it is just like that, like the weird drums, the sort of little bit of guitar, but then it's also just very atmospheric. So yeah, I highly recommend seeing this in theaters. And I think, yeah, that Dune Part One was hindered a bit by people not seeing it in theaters, but I think it still works as a movie that you can watch with, either good headphones or whatever. Probably wouldn't be very fun to watch on like an iPad, but like, you got a TV and a decent sound system, you're probably gonna have a good time.
I don't have a decent sound system is the problem. I use the television
Mm,
speakers, which is a
mm.
mistake. I need to get a surround sound system, but
That's
that's
okay.
my fault.
We're all trying to get there slowly. I
That's right.
know. Well, just call up your old buddy Martin and see if he can lend you some speakers.
Yeah, I'm
Or
sure.
Leo.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sure Leo's speakers are older than 21 now, so you could probably get those.
as we move into the
Yes.
spoiler section, I will
Mm.
say I recommend seeing Dune Part Two if you've already sat through the first one, if you've already suffered through the first one, go see the second one. It's much better. If you haven't seen the first one, you do need to watch the first one to get here. And if you don't want to do that, I can't say I blame you. Let's move into the spoiler section.
Mm.
Paul Atreides, let's kind of talk. I don't know if we'll go scene by scene like we did on the
Okay.
Mission Matinee podcast. Mission Matinee podcast is now available wherever you get your podcasts. But on that show, we went scene by scene through each movie. The Mission Impossible series, we reviewed all of them.
Hmm.
Let's today more so just kind of go on character by
Okay.
character, maybe.
Yeah.
And we are into the spoiler section now. What do you think of the character journey that Paul Atreides goes on? I mentioned before, I thought it was a big surprise. Part of that big surprise is he the bad guy at the end?
Whoa.
What do you think?
Be the baddies? Uh, like yes and no. I mean, as far as him being the bad guy, but I loved his character arc in this. I love that whole time we get to see him spending time with the Fremen. Like it was interesting to me that we jumped in, like we had like that weird opening, which I think we were talking to his sister. Like we got, of course, like the before the title card of WB, we got the classic Sardaukar, whoever controls spice controls the world classic or the universe, whatever. They have the power. sort of leading into that. But then like that whole thing where we jump like right into where part one ended and like watch him transition into like gaining the respect of the Fremen that he's with. I thought all of that was great. Like watching, one of those classic, he's a bit of an outsider, but like, they like him. He's a genuine guy, sincere. He's like flirting with Chani, which was fun. Learning the ways of the desert. All of that was great. And then yeah, as it goes on, this like you in part one and in this, we're getting that there's this prophecy. Paul doesn't believe in it, but things happen with Rebecca Ferguson that we can get into. So then it's like becoming more intense, this prophecy that's going on. You have different members of the Fremen tribe that either believe that he's the Lisai al Ghalib or the chosen one or not, and all of that I thought was really well done, really well executed. Like even the fervent believers still being like pragmatic about how they interact with Paul, not this just blatantly like worshiping immediately, but still like we're all a team. And then the circumstances that they're all trapped in lead to Paul having to make the choice to lean in to this Bene Gesserit prophecy. And then that's where we get that sort of like hard turn. Like, do we know this guy anymore? Is he the same? What's going to happen? And we can kind of get into what little I know of like what Frank Herbert wrote. Again, I haven't read the books, but they've been in pop culture long enough that I've heard them referenced in other things. So I got like an inkling of an idea.
That's my big question is, does this movie, which ends on a cliffhanger, and we're in the spoiler section now, it ends on the cliffhanger of they're invading the rest of the universe to start the Holy War, the one that that he had the visions of. We realize his visions are only possible futures, but it seems like the future that he wanted to have. I mean, he went south, he did all the things, and now he's starting the Holy War that seems to be where he turns into a bad guy. Is that where the book ends, or is that where Dune Messiah picks up, or is he only adapting a third? It's each movie like a third of the book? I don't know. I wish that you had read the book. Why didn't you read the fucking book, Alex?
Well, because I wanted to see the movies first. I don't want to know what's going to happen. I want to have like an idea and then see what happens. I'll read them eventually.
That's probably the same reason I haven't seen the 1984 film yet, because I wanted to watch part 1 and 2, not get any spoilers, and then watch the 84 film. So
I'll probably watch the 84 film at some point soon.
I feel
like we've gotten through most of it. Although we haven't seen the Spacing Guild yet, so maybe there's more. But I assume that now we're moving into Dune Messiah, which would be probably the beginning of the next book. Or because I do believe that the first book, from what little bit I remember, wraps up around here. There might be different little bits because they have, obviously an adaptation. They've tweaked some things. I think we've spent less time with more of the other races than just the Fremen and the Atreides. Than like the books did. I think the books like set up the Spacing Guild, and you met them, and you met some of the other houses more than just the Harkonnens or the Emperor. But yeah, as far as I know, like the full Dune series is like a critique of Chosen One narratives, like and sort of the ebb and flow of nature. Like, even the Bene Gesserit, who plan over centuries, mean nothing to the universe, which like does stuff over eons. So it's like they're trying to get to this paradise, but they're going to cause a lot of death and destruction in between, and ultimately have very little effect on the overall universe, I think is like the point of one of the themes of the Dune series of novels, of what Frank Herbert was going for.
Is that why people say that Star Wars is in part based on, or inspired by Dune, the books? Because I'm a little bit of an Anakin Skywalker comparison I'm kind of getting here,
Yeah, I think so, but like handled by someone a lot smarter.
Well, I'm not going to say that Anakin Skywalker's arc in Revenge of the Sith, although good, it's not probably as well well written, let's say, as Paul Atreides, because you really you get that downfall. I believe that he would make every decision that he made along the way.
Yeah. Like again, I think it's not so much like, because I was talking to my friend about this, and he's like, oh, so like Paul's gonna just use the Fremen and then gain all the power, and it's not so much that like Paul is exploiting anyone to do this thing, it's not really. I get the vibe that Frank Herbert wasn't as much concerned about like Paul's motivations or him being like an evil person, but just that like using these type of narratives to control people are
Yeah.
just bad, you know. So
Yeah.
like Paul could be trying to make what he thinks is the right decision to save the most lives each and every step of the way, but that path laid by the Bene Gesserit and the conflicts that like a religious like zealotry leads to, like those are tools that I don't think he thinks can be used to do good. Like they only can lead to this kind of extreme conflict. But again, that's based off like snippets here and there over the years. So all the Dune heads sound off about how wrong I am in the comments.
And well, I was going to say sound off how wrong I am, but I am when you're objectively correct, how can
Yeah,
anybody,
exactly. Yeah.
only fell asleep for 5 minutes versus
all the op heads tell Sammy's wrong about the flower heads, and
flower heads. We call ourselves the Killers.
No,
because I think that would imply that we're do you
the
see
band?
No, the bad people in Killers the Flower Moon. I
gotcha.
am 1/16 Native American. So
hell yeah.
What do you think? Would you agree with the statement that Zendaya's character has the best arc in this film, or do you think Paul has the best arc? It's a mix up, because my gut impulse is to say Zendaya has the best arc in this film.
I think they complement each other really well.
Yes.
In a sense that like because I enjoyed so much of like, they're like flirting, like she's teaching him about the desert, and he's like, I've dreamed of you almost my whole life, and this is exciting that you're paying attention to me now. That whole like just all of their interactions I thought were great. And I really liked that she was one of the, against this like religious story, this like prophecy, didn't believe in the Lisa Al Galib, but like saw Paul as like, no, you're a genuinely good dude who like wants to be a part of us, all of that. And then like the fact that like Paul and her are on the same page, and then you got obviously like Stilgar as the other character, the sort of help this like group of the prophecy, and Paul dealing with who he is, because like the two people he becomes closest to in the Fremen would be Chani and Stilgar, and you got Stilgar, who like again I love his pragmatism the whole time, even when he's talking to Rebecca Ferguson, he's like, I believe you are the Reverend Mother, I want you to become that, and she's like, what if I don't want to? He's like, well then we'll recycle your water, so like you can either join my belief system and do the thing that I think is the prophecy, or we'll kill you. I thought he was really good. So again, like the sort of constellation of Chani, Paul, and Stilgar, I thought was really good. Like them all working together, them all being friends, and like the prophecy not mattering too much until the Harkonnens bring a harder force to bear, and like force this, like we have to unite the tribes. And then you get to see like Chani move away from Paul, because like even though Paul continues to be like, I will love you as long as I breathe, like he's now fully taken on the ability to like see past and future, and is now playing the Game of Thrones politics of the whole thing, whether he is like seeing the correct path, like he now is whatever power is within him, awoken a little bit by the spice, now expanded by the sandworm venom, like he is like, no, we're on this path that must be done, because if we don't do this, no one's going to let the Fremen have Arrakis. No one's going to let, they're all going to keep coming here trying to destroy these people. And now, but Chani sees those choices as like a big rejection. And so I'm excited, like her final shot, I was like, is she riding off into the sunset? Is she wanting to be eaten by Shia Halud? I don't know. I was like, this is a downer shot, but also hopefully Zendaya is back. But so yeah, I think all of them were great.
Yeah, she goes on a big arc in the sense that I was like, man, they're putting them in a romantic situation real fast. And I realized it's because they have so much other character stuff to do. But she starts off with almost the same belief that she has at the end. She's just more emboldened by the end. She's like, they're using these prophecies, like you're talking about, they're using this chosen one narrative to enslave us. And then by the end, she's like, fuck, it sucks that it's my boyfriend, but I still have this core belief that this is not our path to salvation or freedom, if you want to call it that. And then Javier Bardem's character. I'm
Yeah.
horrible with names. Javier Bardem's
Okay.
character is.
Mhm.
I think I get the sense that he is being very pragmatic, but also he very much believes in Paul.
Oh yeah, he's a zealot. And
Yeah,
I love that. But I just love that like he's not a zealot in like, oh, everything will work out, as long as we just believe. Like he's that sometimes, but he's also like, maybe you aren't the one, and I still believe the one is kind. Like I just like
he's like, I can
how
influence this a
that's
little bit.
yeah, how that's shown in like a desert society where they're like used to like people dying, things never working out. Like they are people of the desert, and I thought all of it was great. And also like he has some of the best like comedy of the movie, I get, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
Like his like zealotry kind of being played for laughs at points. And then also like when we get our boy Josh Brolin back, famously from Jonah Hex and some other movie where he's a purpley dude. uh he like when he's like, I know where the nukes are, and Stilgar's like, this place is obvious. He's like, that's the thing. Like no one would think to look here because it's obvious. And he's like, not clever. And he's like, you didn't find him? And he's like, because I didn't look for him. I just like like there's a bunch of good, more like moments of levity in this one than Dune Part One, which I think was good. It like helped the movie breathe. You're not so locked in with this political turmoil or whatever.
Lady Jessica also has it. You make a good point. I forgot that Lady Jessica, for a second, that I forgot that she was kind of pressed into this position of being
Mm-hmm.
this Reverend Mother, as they call her. But she really takes on the role. And she's already kind. I got the sense that she was a little bit of a gray character in Dune Part One, but
Mm-hmm.
they take that to the max. She almost becomes the bad guy quicker than, well, she does become the bad guy quicker than Paul does, and she has
Oh
this
yeah.
huge descent into, I mean, she's kind of desperate at this point. She's lost a lot, but she goes head first. What did you think of Lady Jessica? Rebecca Ferguson, obviously. You can't go wrong with Rebecca
Yeah,
Ferguson.
she's great.
Did you see her at the premiere? She looked great at the premiere.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, what'd you think of her character though?
I mean, one, you gotta Denny giving respect to Chris McQuarrie,
Real
obviously having,
recognizes real,
yeah,
McHugh.
putting Rebecca Ferguson, just she's out there killing it. No, I mean, absolutely, all groups aside, she was fantastic in both of these movies as Lady Jessica. I love, you get the inklings of like her ambition in Part One. She's still kind of quiet and meek and like has her own designs, but you see when she talks to the other Reverend Mother of the Bene Gesserit, when she does the test of Paul, that like, oh no, like she's kind of like stepping out.
Mhm.
She's going against this plan that they've set. Like she thinks she can sire the one, the Lisa Al Galib, or the Quizrak Hatterack, I think is what they call it. Um, Again, crazy names, but they're fun to say. If I'm even saying them correctly. But yeah, and then man, when she obviously has like brought into this thing by Stilgar being like, yeah, you can either accept being the Reverend Mother or we'll kill you, and recycle your water. It's like that's great. That was super fun. Like it being kind of used against her, having to potentially take this poison and take on this role. And then just, yeah, the descent into like borderline madness with like, we get Paul in sort of like a caring way, giving voiceover narration to his unborn sister. And then we have Jessica having full on
Yeah.
conversations with her
It's
fetus
like
inside
imagining,
her.
yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
split
Because they both,
personality almost
yeah,
thing.
they both took that like worm poison, which essentially, like I think in each of the different cultures they have a way of passing on the memories of the Bene Gesserit, because like that's what the Bene Gesserit do apparently, is like the women hold the memories of all the other women that were in this role, and that's like where the voice comes from, that's all this stuff, and that's how they're able to like do these plans over centuries. So she and her daughter like get this download of like, I guess, psychic power,
Yeah.
memories, all of these things. And then like, yeah, like having these conversations and being like, we'll work with the weakest ones, the fear will make them all believe. I'm just like, you are so scary. But she
Yeah.
was just incredible in the whole role. And like her scene when she takes the blue worm milk, like I don't know if they're doing like other practical stuff, like she just like looked so rough.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing was wild, it was so good. Yeah, I thought she was incredible
I
in
love
this
that this
movie.
movie has such a cast of beautiful people, like very
Hmm.
beautiful people across the board, but it's not afraid to make them look downright disgusting at times.
Oh yeah. Oh
with
yeah.
with Zendaya, even they have a nightmare sequence where she gets like atomic
Oh yeah.
blasted, and
She
then
gets
ooh,
T2'd for a second. You're like, whoa.
it's great. Yeah, I thought Rebecca Ferguson can't go wrong. She did a great job, but then also this arc, we get a little glimpse of it in part one, like I said, but I did
Mhm.
not expect her to go
Oh
just
yeah.
how crazy she went. And by the time we reach
Same.
the end of this movie, it's like, oh my god, we got two villain origin stories, and they're both
Yeah.
very well done. Again, I love the fact that this movie had actual character arcs. I can't say that
Hmm.
enough. First one really lacks some character arcs. It's a lot
Yeah,
of
but
table setting.
it's all the great setup that you need. We
10
took our
episode
time
series,
setting it
10
up.
episode
I'm not
series.
against that, Sam. I think that would be cool. But right now we have this, and then maybe later they'll make a series on Amazon that everyone will hate because they'll have used CGI paper at one point, I guess.
We were just going right down the line with storylines. So I talked about how the movie is immediately better at the beginning whenever you add Florence Pugh and Christopher Walken to the cast. I like Florence Pugh as I don't quite know where she gets me. Like, she's a little bit of a pragmatist as well. She's trying to figure out, but she's maybe not as evil of a character as some of the other characters are. And then the
Mm-hmm.
Emperor, I was kind of hoping maybe you could shed a little bit of light on this. What is the Emperor's play? Obviously, we know where he ends up, but what's his play? I mean, he's kind of behind the fall of House Atreides, not in the first movie, but then we find out that he was kind of
Yeah.
helping the Harkonnens throughout that. But I thought he was kind of not a bad guy, But now is he a bad guy? What's going on with
Oh,
the Emperor?
yeah. So I mean, it's again, this is like in the first one that we know that the Emperor gave Arrakis to the Atreides
Right.
because Leto Atreides, like, his voice was getting too powerful, and too much of a potential contender to be a future emperor. Like, the Atreides house was like one of the most respected houses, like leading not through like fear and destruction, but like Leto, like actually, being a diplomat and like trying to foster like bonds of friendship and trust and strength. And so that was like the plan. Also set in motion, we find out for sure in this one by the Bene Gesserit, to diminish and basically cut off the Atreides bloodline. Um, Although I guess a wrench was thrown in that by Jessica giving birth to a son, and who could have had the potential to be the Kwisatz Haderach. But yeah, so essentially the Emperor doesn't like Oscar Isaac's character, gives Arrakis to them, and
No,
also lets.
so he
Uh,
did that because he knew that the Harkonnen, it would start like a civil war. So the
oh
Emperor's
yeah,
like, I don't want to kill him directly. Let me give him Arrakis
yeah.
under the guise of me just being a nice guy. Let the Harkonnens deal with it because they will deal with it. Was that his
Yeah.
idea?
Well, like, he also lent his own Sardaukar troops to help murder the Atreides.
So,
Like
which
those.
brings the question:
Mhm.
why did he pretend to be a nice guy to begin with? Why didn't he just? And this is not my. I'll admit I heard this somewhere else in a 7.5 hour podcast that I'm not done listening to yet. But it. Why didn't they just shoot him in the head? Why did they pretend to be nice to begin with? Why did they go through all these
Well,
these
because
these pleasantries to
yeah,
kill
he's
him?
not. There's other houses that will that have like treaties with the Atreides people. It's like Game of Thrones. You can't just go, like, you could, but then that's the problem.
Well,
Joffrey cut off the
that's
head
what's
of Ned
so
Stark,
great about Game
and
of Thrones is that they didn't bring Ned to be the hand of the king. I'm rewatching Game of Thrones, so you just walked into my trap. They didn't.
that okay.
They, they didn't bring Ned Stark to Winterfell or to the capital to
Yeah,
kill him. They brought him there
right.
genuinely to be the hand of the king, and it's because of who he is. And you get what I'm going. You get where I'm going.
Yeah, but like, all of that was set in motion by the Lannisters, like by the fact that whatever his name is, the original king, Robert Baratheon,
Yeah.
like, he dies, and then Joffrey has to become king. But like, Ned knows that Joffrey's not actually the son, but Joffrey is so
I know.
ill-tempered
I told you.
as
I
to
just
not
watched it.
yeah, as to not, like, he makes the dumb decision to murder Ned in front of everyone, which makes Ned a flashpoint, a figure to cause a civil war. But if you just give Arrakis to Leto, and then basically sabotage all the equipment. And also, it's out in the middle of nowhere. The moon is messing with the stuff, and then have the Harkonnens come in and just murder them while you also give them
Is
power.
that not
It
the
makes the
same?
Harkonnens the bad guy,
Okay.
not you, the Emperor.
So it's the
Like,
same result. You still get the martyrdom of the House
yeah,
Atreides, but it's not
mm,
you with
right.
your
But
knife
I
to his
like,
throat
yeah.
kind of thing.
If Paul hadn't survived and Jessica, then like this would have just been like, oh yeah, we gotta slap the Harkonnens down, but also we can't now because they control Arrakis, which is the money center of the entire universe. Like
It's
spice is the very thing that allows for the space travel to happen. You can't
it's like
not have
giving
spice.
yeah, I know, and that's like giving your enemy just a huge deal of leverage right there, isn't it? Like by putting your enemy, the Atreides, in charge of the most important planet. Like now they have the most important planet. So like if you
Yeah,
fuck up, they could ruin your whole universe.
right. But the whole thing was set up for the Atreides to fail and be murdered. That's the point.
A lot of risk in there. And then look at that, it backfires. And who's the emperor now?
Oh yeah, but that again, that's because like it was part an aging emperor trying to consolidate power away from someone who could more easily rise up against him. Because like no one's really going to join the Harkonnens. Everyone just tolerates the Harkonnens. You know, they're bastards, but like you
We'll
know
get
they
to that.
tolerate
There's
them.
a lot to say
Yeah,
about one of them at least, but
yeah. But then but the Atreides, like people would join up against the Atreides. I could lead all this stuff, but also this was a giant plan of the Bene Gesserit to just continue to cross these bloodlines to bring forth the Kwisatz Haderach. And then that one lady decided that like we have to get rid of the Atreides bloodline, so she also influenced the Emperor to do this. At the same time, they're setting up the daughter to partner with one of these houses to move past this Emperor to continue to work towards this human, this male that can bridge space and time in their mind to
yeah,
like lead to this potential paradise future.
because their plans don't take years, they take centuries or something, right? Is
Right.
it those people?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there we
Yeah.
go. And that, so Florence Pugh, did you like Florence Pugh in the movie? She's not given a lot to do, but I
Yeah. I
liked
mean,
what she got to do.
yeah, I was reminded a little bit of like Zendaya in the first one, where you know, like we're meeting this character a little bit, but they will be more important later.
Yeah,
You know, and I thought she did a good job with like again, like not a whole lot of screen time, but effective in all of it. Like sort of her piecing together that like all of this is a play by the Bene Gesserit, and also that her father wanted the House Atreides to be murdered, you know, and was like keeping that from her and
yeah,
all of this stuff. And then to be pragmatic in the end of like still that like care for her dad, who also, you know, like I like that he calls Leto Atreides a weak man, where we see Christopher Walken do like almost nothing in this movie. Like, but like what? Like he does a good job with the role. But
yeah.
like he's just sort of like there, old.
The way I see it is like you have this character who's like, important in the larger scheme of things or important
Yeah.
to is an important plot device, but the actor is not going to get a lot of time to show the prestige. So how do you immediately inject some prestige into this
Oh
role?
yeah.
You get somebody like a Christopher
Yeah,
Walken,
Christopher Walken, baby.
and his line reads are good. There was a couple for the most times he's pretty reserved, but a couple of
Yeah.
times you get a little of his Walkenisms, like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's him. That's what he
I
sounds like.
know.
It was good.
Yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed it. But again, like it was all well done. And like watching Florence Pugh, because I don't remember her character's name off the top of my head right now. I'm sorry. I can look it up. But like
You could
watching
just say her
her,
character.
yeah, watching her character watch the Reverend Mother, that Bene Gesserit person, manipulate her dad was also really good.
Princess
You know.
Irulan.
Yes.
Irulan.
Princess Irulan. I don't know. That
Irulan.
sounds right. Yeah.
She was good. I liked her outfits.
Mhm.
In the movie. Florence Pugh was a little bit better in Oppenheimer, but you'll never get me to admit it. She had better scenes in Oppenheimer. If you know what I mean. I really liked Austin Butler in the movie. He's a really fun character. He's a great addition. Again, adding some life to this. Dave Bautista was fun, but he's a little, I don't know.
I liked him being like the dumb, fail son type. You know,
that's a great
like
way to describe it.
He's a brute. He's a brawler, but he's not good at anything.
Yeah. So you need somebody that can actually be good at stuff and be intimidated. David Bautista, because of that, he's not as intimidating as he could be. I think Austin Butler adds that intimidation factor and an unhinged, just crazy character. I thought he did that really well. I've never seen him like this before, so that was cool.
Oh yeah, no, he was fantastic in this movie as Fade Rotha. Like just again, like terrifying, clearly a little unhinged, and like this crazy bloodlust, like feeding his like female servants like fresh
Yeah,
meat that he killed and all that
yeah,
stuff. And also like the raw excitement when one of the people at his birthday gladiatorial thing isn't like hampered chemically so he can easily kill them.
yeah.
Like that whole bit between Baron Harkonnen and Fade Rotha, like at the gladiatorial thing, I was like, dude, this is sick. You guys are such evil people.
That was interesting because it immediately, yeah, like that's our first scene or big. That's whenever we get to kind of meet these characters and get some characterization for Austin Butler as a new character, but also the
Yeah,
dynamic between him and his uncle, father,
uncle, I believe
uncle,
uncle. Yeah,
Stellan Skarsgård, of course, being great at being creepy and stuff, and but they also kind of have to. Well, by the end of the movie, he is defeated. So
oh yeah,
you start to lose that creepiness factor. So again, having someone like an Austin Butler come in and do what he does is also cool. But it's an interesting dynamic because like, is he really as threatening as he is perceived? Because like you said, they're drugged. He's mostly for killing, people who can barely put up a fight for show. Then
mm-hmm.
you get Stellan Skarsgård doing what he's doing. But so he does defeat a guy who's not drugged, but also it's
Right,
like part of his fear is a little bit of a veil. So by the time he defeats
yeah.
or he is defeated by Paul, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see it. Well, I guess now that I think about that fight was great. That fight
It
was
was
like
so good
it was
between Paul
brutal.
and Fade.
Yeah, at the end.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh man, I was like, what? Where are we going? I think I know where this is going to end, but is it going to do something else? I don't
There
know.
was a moment. There was a moment where I'm like, I have never read the books. I don't know. I
Right.
guess I do know there is Dune Messiah, so Paul's probably not going to die. But what
I
if,
don't.
like
What?
he
Yeah.
looks like he might.
There was a moment where I was like, "Oh shoot, is he not? Is that what the next one's
And,
about? The
and
fact that he died,
and again, yeah,
and they got to keep doing stuff."
I've been watching Game of Thrones and Ned Stark, of course. Spoilers
Yeah,
for a 14-year-old series, but at
yeah.
the end of
It
Game of
it ends
Thrones,
really bad. It's not a good show.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That's what we're rewatching it right now, and I've already said I'm stopping at season 4. You can watch the rest if you want. I'm stopping
Nice.
when Tywin, the best character, dies. So,
Mm.
anyways, I was half expecting because Ned Stark dies. I was like, fuck, we've got an ensemble here, so we could lose
Yeah.
Timothy Chalamet and Zendaya is the main character. Holy shit, they didn't go that way. But again, I just enjoyed the fact that it really could have, and I could really,
Oh
I
yeah.
really believed that it could because again, that fight was so brutal. I believed anything could happen.
Oh yeah. It was an excellent like climactic and intimate fight. Like to go from like the big war, the sandworms, like just wrecking the 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 Sardaukar like
Yeah,
warships, and then just like surrounding the Emperor and all that, and like seeing Paul as this like uber confident like leader now, so much so that he's like shirking tradition and roles and all of
yeah.
this stuff. Like, and then like that fight for him to like nearly lose, I was like, holy shit, this is wild. This is well done. This is why movies are made. Got good movies in them.
They debuted a new Nicole Kidman ad at the AMC theater that I went to. It was all right. It was whatever. It was fine.
Does crying tears still feel good?
I don't know if they changed some of the lines. That's weird. They retained some of the lines they put her in the same suit. They retained some of the lines. It's like they did reshoots for an ad.
Or like an alternate cut, like they have other footage, and they're like, let's just put a fresh coat of paint on this.
I don't know. It's like I mean, I just wish they would play the original ad in its entirety.
Oh, dude, it's a classic. Goes down in history.
We come to this place for magic.
Yeah.
Bam. Because here they are. It's like you don't need anything more than that. It's like watching Glee. The opening titles for Glee. They could do more. They could do different. No. Glee. Black screen, white text. And there's a comparison. So we got off track a little bit here. We were talking about the Harkonnens. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say? Austin Butler was a great addition to this movie. Stellan Skarsgård and David Bautista were still good, but I do think Austin Butler stole the show as far as the Harkonnens. But is there anything else you want to say about that section of characters before we move on?
I mean, I like meeting Lea Seydoux' Lady Margot here, and her like manipulation, like just instant manipulation of Fade Rotha. Yeah. Like how quickly she like, and just that whole thing. And then, so hopefully she'll continue to be in these movies. I think that's one of the names that I've heard.
Yeah.
Like involved in other aspects later on. Because and got the Harkonnen bloodline in her. So that's exciting.
that makes, again, I am so solidified though in my belief that this should have been a mini series, or not even a mini series. You could have probably made 3 seasons out of it. It could have been like a Game of Thrones type series. It could have, like, if you could have made you, they could have really. I'm sure that the
That could
thing.
still happen.
Well, yeah, but then it'd be another adaptation or a spinoff to this or something. I'm
Yeah.
saying the mainline Dune story with Denis Villeneuve as a showrunner and maybe directing most, like the first 3 and the last 3 of each season or something. That should have been that. Man, it would have been the best
Then,
television series of our time, maybe.
yeah, but like you said, I mean, maybe, but also you wouldn't have had the theatrical loud experience. You would have had to watch it on
I
your
know,
little
and I'm
TV.
thinking about that in the back of my head when I say it should have been a mini series. But I don't know, there's a time when we're not in the golden age of television anymore. By the time of Breaking Bad, time of Game of Thrones, they're
Oh yeah.
matching, they're rivaling, the best movies, and I think this could have slid right in there with it.
Oh yeah. But I'm
I,
glad. I'm happy with what we got, man. These are
I,
great. They're great
I
movies.
just think that first movie it suffered so much, and I do think it's a little bit disappointing that I don't know about. I know at least one example, but I'm sure there are other examples of people that won't make it to that. It's like that meme, the mining meme where the guy's just mining through dirt and dirt and dirt, then he walks away right before he gets to the gold or the diamonds or whatever. That's kind of what I think a lot of people will do when they won't watch Dune Part 2 because Dune Part 1 suffered because of the way they chose to tell the story.
I mean, it's possible. It's possible. But all of those people are wrong. So, like, what am I going to do? Like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't, like, it's good. It's great. These movies, like, slap. They're excellent.
I really love the lore. I like the character.
Yeah.
I will see the third one, and the third one has the potential to be the best. It also could, be
It'll be
second best.
apparently be a while.
You think
Before we
so?
see
Is
it.
that what they've
Well,
said?
that's a little bit what I was reading while you were fixing the stream was that like Denis working on a script for the third one most likely will be greenlit because this one's like doing pretty well, supposed to do
They
well.
say it's going to make a lot
Uh,
of money this weekend.
yeah. And then I mean we'll see. So I guess all of that's up in the air. But also he said he's like, I want, he's like, if I like the script, I'll make the movie. But also I think he wants to take a break and do something else before getting back into
Because he's not a franchise
doing
guy, right? Even whenever he
no.
did Sicario, which started a franchise, he did not return for the sequel.
Right.
Whenever he did Blade Runner, which is part of a franchise, he only did one, and that's kind of,
Yeah.
you could say it's a standalone story. You could just watch Blade Runner 2049. It's great.
Oh yeah.
So he's not really a franchise guy. So for him to do multi parts of a big, sci-fi series, it's kind of different for him. But what I like is that he hasn't lost his touch. This feels similar thematically or stylistically to a Sicario, to a Blade Runner 2049, to a Prisoners. Great movie.
Dude, he's great. He's working with fantastic cinematographers, just out there killing it, and like does seem to like deeply care about making them the best he can. So he's not out there like, oh yeah, I'm gonna rush out another part. I'm not, like he's working with them, taking his time.
As a person who's made a $200 million film myself,
right. Yeah.
My advice to my fellow filmmaker, my fellow Oscar-nominated filmmaker, Denis Villeneuve, having not read Dune Messiah, make Dune Messiah into one movie. Don't do it into multi-part. Skip that shit. Quit doing it.
Don't listen to Sam's ADD-addled brain. Do what you want, man. They're great. We'll watch them. People will return to these movies. They'll be great. Take the Jackie Chan philosophy. Like these movies will outlive all of us. So like take the time, do it the way you want.
You can tell
don't follow the ebbs and flows of ADD-addled brains.
Okay, that's ableist and a bunch of other buzzwords I'm going to throw at you.
It's ableist only because we've created a society that forces us to have short attention spans. This doesn't mean that's the way it'll always be.
I post on TikTok, but I don't even look at the TikTok videos. I don't even have the app on my phone, but I do. But you should follow us on at the Film Fan Club on TikTok, but I don't watch it myself.
Man, you're just like the CEOs of all these websites. You're like, yeah, you should have Facebook. Your kids should have Facebook, but I pay people to make sure my kids don't have Facebook or Instagram. but you should. You should. Yeah. Do we want to talk about the person who's in this movie who wasn't like in the credits?
I think if I know what you're talking about, we are in
Yeah,
spoiler discussion. Anya
yeah,
Taylor-Joy is in this
I
movie.
know.
I think she's a flash forward of his sister.
His
Am I right?
sister. Yeah.
Yeah. Who I imagine again set up for the third movie. Probably
Yeah.
the third movie could do anything. It could pick up immediately after this and have a huge battle, or I could easily see it picking up years later. We won the battle. Paul is the evil emperor now, and here's what's going on. I don't know, but yeah, what do you think is going to happen with Anya Taylor-Joy's character?
I don't know. I mean, like, again, this is getting into areas that I don't know much about. It's like the other thing. The only other bit that I know is that eventually an ancestor of Paul is a giant sandworm that lives for like 3,000 years. That happens in a later part of Dune. That one of his ancestors is a giant sandworm somehow.
It's
I don't
awesome.
know how that happens, but yeah. But eventually, yeah, he is one of the Shai Halud or
I
whatever.
hope that Rebecca Ferguson doesn't fuck a sandworm in the next one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, who
They
knows?
showed they have those smaller ones, and
Yeah,
the
the
what?
little
See what I was doing there? You
little baby
imagine what
one.
you could do
Yep.
with a sandworm.
Uh, I mean, they're scary, but
I wonder what
yeah.
other
So
liquids are blue that it secretes.
we'll tune in next time and we'll find out.
All
But
right.
yeah, as far as like her character, I don't know. I mean, she obviously already has the Bene Gesserit like knowledge
Mm-hmm.
because she took the poison as a baby. Also,
Yeah.
it was crazy. All of the like shots of a fetus in the womb.
Yeah, that was weird. As it's
It was
developing,
wild. Yeah, I was. Oof. I was
it
like,
was a
man, I
good
love
way
it.
to
I
tell me
love it when
how
a
much.
movie gets weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
And
liked
how
it
much
as
time had passed.
exactly as a mechanic for you to be like, all right, Sam, it's now been 9 months since
Hmm.
this. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. He's had 9 months to embed himself in the Freeman. Thank you, movie. I hate whenever movies are like, what's a we're watching Sherlock, the BBC series with Benedict
Ah,
Cumberbatch. An episode will start and it's like November, and then it'll be like, oh, and now it's New Year's. I'm like, how much time are they working on this case?
a lot apparently.
A
Takes
lot,
time.
anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
So
And then they cut it very quick. But yeah, but I don't know what to expect from her character in all of this, other than like just another powerful player coming onto the scene. You know.
yeah, I love. I
Um,
mean, great addition of Anya Taylor
yeah,
Joy at the
I
height of her
know.
career at any time.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It was just like, obviously got a trailer for Furiosa before the movie, which
hype.
looks incredible. Yeah,
Yeah,
looks.
I can't
I'm
wait.
so excited. But and then, like, I'd seen in the trailers there's a few shots of like a character by the water, and thought it was Zendaya or someone, and then turns around it's Anya Taylor Joy, and I was like, whoa, what the hell? Which like
Yeah.
also gives me hope that they will make another one to give such a brief moment to Anya Taylor Joy, at the height of her career. It's like, almost like a
So, and that's another interesting part of the flash forward is that it's her by the water. So that implies some sort of. Are they gonna? It looked like it was on Arrakis, though, right?
yeah.
Was there water on Arrakis? Are they gonna bring life and water
Well,
and all this stuff?
that's like part of the prophecy is that they'll turn Arrakis into a paradise again. Like that's what it was originally supposed to. That was like when they went to Arrakis way back. Because we meet those like green stations
Yeah.
in part one, which were supposed to help, I guess, terraform or release the water deep in the planet to help bring it to life. But when they discovered spice, all of that got pushed to the side in favor of just mining spice,
Oh
just
wow. And the
getting
people
all of
suffered.
that. Yeah, so that
What
is
a
one of
metaphor.
the prophecies that the Bene Gesserit have used is that like this Khwisrak Haderach will help create a paradise out of Dune, which was the Fremen word for the planet.
Yes, that's where they get that's where they get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm
That's
excited.
where we get that word.
I think that I will see Dune Part 3, and it will not be a chore. Like Dune, I finished Dune Part 1 eventually. I had it in the back. I had it on in the background while I was doing dishes before I got ready for Dune Part 2. But I finished Dune Part 1. It was a slog. Dune Part 2, actually good. Actually good. I don't know
Yeah,
how good yet. This is why we don't do number ratings on this show.
it's a five
But
bagger, easy five bagger,
easy five bagger, I would say. And
and two little blue like Gatorades.
two little blue. I was just gonna say two little worms.
Yeah, you can do little worms.
Oh, two little bags of gummy worms.
Yeah, and a blue Gatorade that Yeah, the fuck your mind up. Yeah.
Great. So that should be that wraps up our discussion of Dune Part 2. Alex McKellar, thank you so much for joining the show. It's always a
Yeah,
pleasure having
absolutely.
you. You obviously made a great video that is linked in the description. So I want to
Sweet.
remind people to check out Dunenheimer.
Hmm.
Is that what it's called? Dunenheimer?
Well, yeah, Dunenheimer or Dune Part 2 Oppenheimer style. It has two titles because they both explain each other. And I like both. And I can do that because it's YouTube.
All right, that's our show. I'd like to thank Alex McKellar for joining me this week. Our next episode will be on a special day at a special time. Tune in Sunday, March 10th, after the Oscars, to our YouTube channel, The Film Fan Club, for a live Film Fan Club show. Ian Simmons will be here to help us break down the winners and losers from this year's Oscars. I can't wait. It'll be available Monday morning as a podcast. So tune in Sunday night on the YouTube channel, Monday morning wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Sam Carrico. I'll see you then.